Rachel, let me just first go to you in terms of what we heard today. Some of it we knew before, some of it was new. We are 2 months out from the Republican nomination where Donald Trump is expected to be officially named the Republican nominee for president.
Yeah. And now you've given me that nice, pretty word picture with the boxer shorts. Just saying that right at the end. That was a real kindness.
Sorry.
Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm not as sorry as I am.
Rachel was hoping to do something more exalted with her life than talk about Donald Trump.
Weren't we all? Weren't we all? But here we are. Here we all are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Here we all are. Yes, here we are. I mean, like Jimmy Carter, lust in his heart, almost lost the 1976 election. Gary Hart, lady sitting on his lap, like, that's it, you're gone from politics forever. But in this case, we get the sateen pajamas and the boxer shorts and the not wearing the condom and the spank me with the magazine. And we're just going to move on and have it be like a quasi-religious exaltation of Donald Trump as the great evangelical and right-wing family values hero for the Republican Party in a few months. It's just, this is where we are. I will say, though, Alex, that I'm glad you sort of, before the boxer shorts distraction, which is very upsetting, you landed on something there that was very important, which is they elucidated today from Stormy Daniels, and this is not something that I knew before hearing her or for reading about her testimony today, that there was no sign from Trump, no indication, no gesture from Trump at all that she should keep this tryst with him, this encounter with him secret at all, ever, under any circumstances. Not about embarrassing his family, not about embarrassing him personally, not about it being false, allegedly false. None of these things. There was never a claim from him that she should be quiet about this until the election. And that is important in terms of proving the criminal allegations here. And it dovetails very neatly with the other testimony that we got, that indeed the other hush money payments that were arranged through the National Enquirer, the people who were the subject of those hush money payments, they were released from those agreements once the election was over. In both of those cases, what this means is that this hush money system between Trump and Michael Cohen and the National Enquirer and all these folks, it was specifically designed to influence the election. And when you combine that testimony with the false business records evidence that we've got that the defense isn't even contesting, that's kind of both the elements of the crime that you need.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we wanted to highlight it, because of course we're talking about the salacious details. It's impossible not to. They're meaningful in terms of the narrative of this case, Lawrence. But there is the anecdote that Donald Trump's parading Stormy Daniels around Trump Tower. There's not an attempt to hide his, I'm not going to call her a mistress because it kind of sounded like a one-off, but there was no shame in that game, as it were. You were in the courtroom today for this. Can you tell me how the testimony felt in the room?
Rachel's been in the room. I find it an extremely difficult courtroom to describe because it is so intense. And I say what's difficult about that is I've been in courtrooms where it's a murder trial. I've been in courtrooms where much, much, much worse alleged crimes, mafia conspiracy murder trials, and they're tense. But they're not like this. This is this other planet of jurisprudence in which you have this former president on trial. And just to get to the analysis, I think the best review of Stormy Daniels' testimony today was from Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche. In the argument he made for a mistrial, he presented her testimony in the morning session as so damning to Donald Trump that they can't possibly recover. They can't possibly win the case. That's how effective he thinks her testimony was. And he was fighting for that mistrial like he was fighting for his life, like he was fighting for Donald Trump's life in that courtroom. And the Stormy Daniels testimony I saw was a calm and steady presentation, consistent with what we'd heard before in so many of those television interviews. I had no intention of getting into the details of what
you don't have to. I did it for you.
And by the way, that was the incident. That was what the mistrial was about, was that the judge wanted to eliminate as many details as possible from what actually happened in the bedroom. And more of those details got in, not because of the DA's questions, really, but because of the expansiveness of Stormy Daniels' answers, which is something that is not really possible, easily controlled in the courtroom. There were objections. The judge sustained pretty much all of the defense's objections to the testimony. The judge said he's going to issue a limiting instruction to the jury about how to use her testimony when they're evaluating the case.
I do want to talk about the mistrial piece of it, Rachel, because this seems of a piece with the walking right up to the line of getting Judge Marchant to sentence him to some sort of jail time for violations of his gag order. It feels like Trump and his defense team are trying to build this sort of pressure cooker in and around this trial and dare the judge to have to cross a line or to be able to wave the specter of a mistrial to his supporters and say, see, this is a kangaroo court. The justice system is rigged against me. And, you know, for people who read the transcripts and understand what transpired in court today, I don't think that holds water. But to Trump supporters who want to believe in the injustice and the grievance that Donald Trump has stoked for 8 years now, is it effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point strategically, Alex, because we did have Judge Marchant considering that mistrial motion from the defense, and he said to them, I was expecting you guys to be objecting a lot more than you were. If you were really objecting to what she had to say there, you could have piped up more. You sort of have yourselves to blame here, which raises the prospect that they were letting her say things. They were not objecting. They were not drawing attention to it in the hopes that she might speak in such a way that might raise the prospect of a mistrial. Now Judge Marchant, in addition to questioning their strategy and the fact that they hadn't raised objections themselves, he also said, no, you're not getting the mistrial. I don't think that it's warranted at this point, that part of the transcript that you described there at the top of the show, Alex. But, you know, if there is, Donald Trump has the same rights as any defendant, and defendants have lots of rights. And that motion for a mistrial was not granted by the judge. They can appeal that. And if they think there really were grounds for a mistrial, there really was something fundamentally that went wrong in the trial, they can appeal his ruling. I doubt they'll get anywhere with it, but it would certainly be an additional delay tactic, and they'd love that. So this, you know, the reason this is a site of accountability for Donald Trump like no other is that there are rules in court and you can't bluster your way out of them. And that applies to this salacious testimony and all of its detail and the seemingly somewhat confected furore about it.
Yeah. Speaking of confected fury, we got some. We got the transcript before Showtime, which is a bonus, and there are some details about the sidebars that were happening, Lawrence.
They're great. Yeah. The sidebars are great.
I feel like you could appreciate this having been in the room, but I'll read one between Judge Marchant and Trump's defense attorney Todd Blanche. This is Marchant to Trump's team. I understand that your client is upset at this point, but he is cursing audibly, and he is shaking his head visually, and that's contemptuous. It has the potential to intimidate the witness, and the jury can see that. Blanche, I'll talk to him. Marchant, one time I noticed when Ms. Daniels was testifying about rolling up the magazine to spank him and presumably smacking your client, and after... the front runner. And after that point, he shook his head and looked down. And later, I think he was looking at you, Mr. Blanche. Later, when we were talking about The Apprentice, at that point, he uttered a vulgarity and looked at you this time. Please talk to him at the break. Blanche, yes, I will. Reminds me of when someone's like, your kid's misbehaving in class. Can you do something about it? And I'm like, yeah, I can, knowing full well there's nothing I can actually do.
Yeah, that's the judge saying, I watched him in contempt of court in his seat. In the defendant's seat in this courtroom, and he said he's not going to hold him in contempt, but he said that is contemptuous behavior. And we, as you say, just discovered that in the transcript. We read it about an hour ago. But we were watching we're always watching those bench conferences and always wondering what's going on. And so that's one of the big suspenses of the transcripts coming out. But, you know, every time I walk into that courtroom, every single time, I always think, I'm walking into why I thought Donald Trump would never run for president. Because he was living this life. And I knew he was living this life, and New Yorkers knew he was living this life. He was at a golf tournament where one of the holes in the golf tournament was sponsored by Wicked Pictures, the leading porn producer in America at the time.
Yes.
That's the golf tournament he wants to be in. No other future presidential candidate was there. No presidential candidate has ever gone to a golf tournament where there were, porn stars there at one of the holes. And Stormy Daniels describes that encounter. She met him at the hole that Wicked was sponsoring.
Yes.
That's where they met. And so think about the dozens upon dozens upon dozens of golfers who passed through that hole, greeted Stormy Daniels, got some water from her, and that was the end of it. They are all still free to run for president without having a big scandal in their lives because of what they did that day at the golf course.
I will say, just to put a finer point on it, and I'm sorry, again, to anybody who doesn't want to hear this, the man invites the adult film star to his room and within a matter of minutes allows her to spank him with a magazine that he's on the cover of. Mm-hmm. That's the beginning of the conversation. That's where we're at. That's the front runner for the Republican nomination.
Can I just say
Please.
again, like I feel a little bit like I'm on safari in this culture. Like, I don't know. What do I know? You guys know
We
me.
all are.
But also do you want, sending the body bar, do you want to go to dinner with Mr. Trump? And she shows up and she's like, where's dinner? Also, put on some clothes.
Yeah.
I am a stranger in your land. I don't know if this is a normal thing that happens when you meet.
No. In what land? No land.
No, Rachel, first dates normally do not take place in the hotel room.
No.
There's usually a restaurant
You don't
involved.
start in the pajamas.
Right.
You don't start by dropping your pants and letting someone spank you with the magazine that you're on the cover of. Just putting it out there. Not normal.